Hello, how are you? Hello, I am doing my first sit-down video in quite a long time. I did do one for the Spooktober-a-thon that I participated in October, but other than that, I haven't really done a sit-down video since sometime at the beginning of last year. I just don't really enjoy them. But I've been really wanting to do a January wrap-up for some reason, because I read more than I normally do, which still isn't a lot, but I felt like I wanted to come on here and share it with you guys. So the first book that I read was The Girl with the Whispering Shadow, book 2 in the Crowns of Croswald series by D.E. Knight. I absolutely love this series. It's categorized as a middle grade, but our main character Ivy is 16, and she, in the first book, has just begun attending the Halls of Ivy, which is the magical school in the town where she lives. She spent her entire life working in a castle, believing that she was an orphan and that she had no magical abilities, and then the second that she steps outside of the town where she had been living in, her magic basically explodes from her body and sends this huge signal to everybody else that she's arrived. She's been protected by the slurry field so that her magic could not be detected by the evil queen, who is after her because it turns out Ivy is a long lost princess from a line that the evil queen thought she had ended. I think there was always this hint to her that there might be somebody else out there who could kind of be a potential risk to her reign, but Ivy has been protected this entire time. And so in the second book we follow her. She spends most of her time in Belzebeth, which is the town. We learn about it in the first book. It's a town that has been protected for centuries by hundreds of magical spells, so the queen cannot detect it. So that's where Ivy is for the summer. She's told she can't go back to the school, but then she is allowed to go back to the school. And it's there that she joins, well, not there, in the town she joins the QQC, which is the Quality Quills Club, and it gave me definite HP vibes with Dumbledore's Army because her and these kids that she joined up with in the club spend all of their time learning all of these spells and how to use the quills, and it really comes in handy at the end with this big showdown with the queen. And I just really enjoyed this. I am trying to read more middle grade this year. That was also a goal of mine last year, because sometimes you just want to read a book that doesn't have any war or trauma or issues outside of what goes on in middle grade. It's just the issues that happen just aren't as severe, and the books are so much more whimsical. So this was my first read of the year. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I love D.E. Knight, I love her writing, and I cannot wait for the fourth book in this series to come out. The second book that I read was Finale by Stephanie Garber. This is the conclusion to the Caraval series. That is honestly the most magical book series that I have ever read. Every single, word, sentence, line, scene, page, paragraph, everything is filled with magic. A lot of books do have a lot of magic in them, but it's not every part of the journey, and for this series it really is, and I just absolutely love this one. This, we follow Scarlet and Julian, Antella and Legend trying to take down, I forget what his name is. Gadriel. He is the big fate. He created all of the other fates. He's the head honcho guy, and he is looking to basically take over the world, and they can't let that happen. So they get to team up, and I just love Legend and Donatella. Part of me was I want her to be with Jax. I wanted Jax to be with her because I wanted him to be happy, but I wanted her to be with Legend because I wanted Donatella to be happy. If that makes any sense. I just really love this series. It's, like I said, magic from page 1 of the first book to the last page in this book. It was so good, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars as well. Now those two books I started in 2020 and finished within the first week of 2021, which is probably why I ended up reading so many more books this month. But they were both really good. Now the first book that I officially started in 2021 and my third read was The Words of the Wandering, which is book 3 in the Crowns of Croswald series. This is what I thought was the end of the series, but I just found out that the author is working on the fourth book, which I am so excited about. So in this one, We follow Ivy learning more about her family. In Belsbeth, there's this like tunnel area underneath a bridge where people in the town have been posting articles and just bits of pieces trying to find her family because they were cursed to be wanderers, to be forgotten by everybody that they meet other than people that marry into the family, which is part of how she was hidden. And so she finally finds this book that has stories from her family from generations and generations back, so she's getting to see a little bit of who they were, you know, while they were cursed, and learning about them, because current present day, she doesn't have any other family outside of herself and like the friends that she's made. She is the last of this line. And I really enjoyed this one. It's a lot more in the school setting and just like basic school stuff, but how I know this is a really good series is even the parts of the book that are just like filler to get to the big bits were still so good. I did end up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars because the action doesn't really happen until the last like 50 pages of the book, which was fine because I still enjoyed it, but I did feel like I was wanting more when I got to the end, and when I did get the good like climax bit, it just wasn't enough. So like I said, I was left wanting more, but 4 out of 5 stars, and I again can't wait to read the 4th book in this series. The next book that I finished, which was actually the book before that one, was Crown of Bones by A.K. Wilder. This is about Marcus, who is the heir to Basine, and Ash, his scribe basically. They've been friends all their lives, but Marcus is the heir to the throne, and people in Basine wield these things called phantoms. They're connected to like the innermost parts of yourself, and Marcus is having a really difficult time wielding his, and you have to hold it to form so you can pull it out of yourself. It's almost like a shadow, but you have to be able to hold it to form and see what it is. And he has been prophesized to have one of the greatest phantoms of his generation, and he really, really needs to, because when his father gives up the throne, he's going to be the protector of their realm. And if he doesn't have a phantom who can do that, then why make him king? He is not the older brother. He has an older brother, P10, who is very unhappy with the fact that he's a non-Sabin, which means he doesn't have a phantom, which is why the throne has gone to Marcus. And he's doing everything that he can to undermine Marcus. And even when Marcus does hold his phantom to form, his father is not impressed because it's taken him 9 years, so why should things all of a sudden be different? So he puts P10 on the Council for War instead of Marcus, and Marcus and his friends leave to embark on a journey to Aku, which is this like elite school for people who have phantoms and they want to move up in the ranks. So currently he doesn't have a robe. Your first is yellow, and then I think it's orange and red, or I think green is in there somewhere also. So he needs to go and get his yellow robes in order to hold on to his position as heir. Literally everything that can go wrong does go wrong, and they meet an interesting sailor who Ash falls in love with, who isn't my favorite because I just didn't understand what their romance contributed to the story. It was like insta-love, and that is not for me. I like a slow burn, and the book sets it up as if Marcus and Ash are going to be together, and they were at one point, but because of her station and him being the heir, his father cuts it off. But you can tell that there's lingering feelings between the two of them, so I'm like, why set it up like that if you're going to introduce another character who isn't Marcus? So it was really, really good. Even the fight scenes I really enjoyed, and it was jam-packed. There weren't any moments other than the chapters with Ash and Kaylin, the sailor that gets introduced to them, that I didn't like. I wanted to keep reading. Stop it. I'm gonna have to put you outside, huh? Come on. But it really was super, super action-packed, and I couldn't put it down once I started picking it up. This was a book that I got approved for on NetGalley, so if you want, you can check out my review, which I linked to Goodreads and my blog as well. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because I felt myself skimming through chapters that had anything to do with just Ash and Kaylin's relationship and not with the main story. So that did take it down a star for me because it made it difficult to read, and when I got to those chapters I was like, I'll take a break now, I'll do something else. But when I was reading the rest of the chapters, I just wanted to keep going, so it brought it down a little bit for me. The next book that I read was Secrets of the Starcrossed by Claire O'Connor. This I also gave 4 out of 5 stars because I'm not really big on sci-fi. So the first half of the book I would say was sci-fi, and that was like a 3-star, and the second half of the book really felt like a 4.5, 5 stars, so I merged it into the middle and I gave it a 4. This is about Cassandra, who is the daughter to a really, really powerful merchant in her city, which is like, basically it's like, what if the Roman Empire never fell? So she lives in Britain, or Britannia, and their city is protected inside of this wall. They've got really advanced technology, nobody ever gets sick, there aren't any diseases anymore. And then she starts to hang out with Devin. And Devin is a boy that's been in her classes for her entire life, but she's only just now recognizing him. And he comes into class one day and he's got some illegal technology on him. And it's something that can't be traced, and then these guards show up, and this is all within the first chapter, so it's not a spoiler. These guards show up and they call for Devin. They're going to take him away. And he stands up, and she's blocked just enough that she can take the device out of his jacket, and she puts it into her backpack. So he leaves, and she doesn't really know what's going to happen to him, but their sort of like connection and friendship that blossoms throughout the rest of the story shows her that while she thinks that she lives in a society that has no rules or has no issues, that is safe, has no sickness, nothing like that, he shows her that that's not true. That's only true for people who are on her level, who are in this like inner circle of their kingdom. And it kind of breaks her heart, but also makes her realize that she wants to do something else. And I really, really enjoyed her character growth from this like spoiled girl who thinks that, you know, her life couldn't be more perfect and that everybody else should feel this way, to somebody who wants to help, who wants to make change. I really enjoyed that part of her character development, and I love the steamy bits between her and Devin. She is promised to Marcus, who is the heir to the throne, which Devin doesn't quite understand why. So there's some suspicion on why they're handfasted or like committed to each other, because Cass is actually an orphan. So it's like she was adopted. So he's thinking, you can't be, in the nicest way, you can't be the most eligible bachelorette in town. You're an orphan. We don't even know who you truly are. So it raises some suspicion on why they've been put together and why from such an early age. I think around the age of 10 they're matched together, and normally it doesn't happen until people are like 16 or 17. So it's some suspicion, and he has this theory about who she might truly be. And once we get past the second half of the book and there's all this like long lost princess stuff, magic, I fell head over heels in love with the story, and just wanted to read more. And I posted about it on Instagram and wasn't a big fan of the first half, but throw in a long lost princess and some magic and I'm sold. And the author commented and told me that there is so much more of that in the second book, so that just makes me 10 times more excited to read it. Now, the last book that I read for January was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. Now, I saw this book on a lot of people's worst books of 2020, which broke my heart once I did read it. First of all, this is a gorgeous cover. This is an exclusive edition from Owl Crate, and I absolutely love it. I am really, really finding out that I have a thing for covers that are embossed and don't have dust jackets, because I take the dust jacket off anyways, so why not just give me books that don't have dust jackets? I really, really enjoyed this. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I love anything that's like, you know, dark magic, going to a school, learning to fight, and it was just so good. There was this Goodreads review that I read that said that Galadriel Elle, our main character, is such an unlikable person, but she's written to be that way. She's not meant to be this like fluffy, nice character. She does change a little bit towards the end. She starts to make friends. So I'll backtrack. The premise of this is that Elle has magic. Everybody does who goes to the school, and they get like sucked out of their world and just dropped into the school, and only what they can carry, it's called induction day, and they know it's coming, and only what they brought into the school, and I think there's like a weight allowance, is what they have with them. So she brought 2 t-shirts and a ton of these crystals that she fills with mana. So it's mana and Malia. Those are the 2 different types of magic that you can use. Mana is harvested from energy basically. So she is strict mana, she does push-ups, she does things that are frustrating for her like crocheting, which makes me laugh. And she builds up mana in these crystals and stores them there because she's hoping that when she gets to graduation day, she's going to be able to show off this incredible power that she has, which I wish we'd gotten more of, and make an alliance with somebody. There are enclaves that are already established, and some of the kids have, are from those, so they already know that when they get out, they're going to have protection and a place to go. And she doesn't. One of the characters, Adia, describes her as, you give off the feeling that it's about to rain. And she follows that up by saying, when you're outside and it smells like it's about to rain, it's really, really cloudy, you realize you're in shorts or a tank top, you have sandals on, you don't have an umbrella, you don't have a jacket, and you just go, oh, fuck. That is how she describes Elle. That you see her and you're just like, fuck. And honestly, I love rain. I get excited when I think it's about to rain. I absolutely love it, so I'm offended that that's how she described Elle, but it does make a little bit of sense when you hear her. And I haven't tabbed a book in a really long time, but I tabbed this one a lot, and I tabbed a lot of Blue, which is stuff that I think is funny, because I think that Elle is hilarious. Her sarcasm is so funny. So I'm gonna read you this one part. It says, he's going to be fine, Adia said, but she was grabbing the sling from me as she said it. She even took the purple heart piece. No, he's not. I'm gonna bash his head in with a brick. She's just so, like, harsh and blunt and bold. I really, really love her character. I can understand why some people didn't, especially if they're super character driven for stories, but I just really enjoyed her. And there were some issues about maybe being racist, and I can't speak on that. I didn't feel like there was anything. There aren't a lot of Mexican characters. There wasn't a lot that I felt was offensive towards my culture, so I can't really say anything to anybody else. If you did feel like it was racist, I am very sorry. It's not my place to apologize, though. The author should be doing that, and I believe she mentioned some things, but I didn't look too much into it. There was a paragraph about dreadlocks and how people who are in the Scholomance that wear them are most likely going to die because these bugs like burrow into the dreadlocks, and somebody said that it was perpetuating the dreadlocks as a dirty hairstyle, which I get, and I do think it was a paragraph that just didn't need to be in there. There was a lot of paragraphs in there, honestly, that I felt like didn't need to be in there, like there were filler paragraphs, but that one was like, that did nothing for the storyline. So yeah, it could have been left out, and from what I had heard, it was added at the last minute, so it went through editing and then she chose to add it in, which is sus to me. Because I'm like, did you know that your editors weren't going to approve of it, so you waited and then you added it in? I'm not reading too much into it, but I did agree that that was unnecessary. But this reviewer that I, read her review on Goodreads said that Elle just picks up languages as if they mean nothing to her, and she doesn't think of anything. She doesn't consider the cultures that are attached to them, and I just don't agree with that. I mean, yeah, she doesn't consider the cultures, but she doesn't do it in a negative way. The more languages that you know, the better off you are, because the Scholomance provides you with spells. So if you only know one language and you're looking for a very specific spell, if it's not written in that language or in a book that's in that language, you're not going to get it. So if you know 10 languages, at least enough of the basic words of those languages, when you ask the Scholomance into the void, which is like this black hole that's in your room, you just literally ask, I need a spell for Immortal Flame. If you know 10 languages, or at least enough of 10 languages to qualify for that language basically, then you have a greater chance of receiving the spell that you're looking for. So that, it's purely for survival. That's why she knows languages. And she said something about how Elle called people Arabic speakers or Sanskrit speakers and doesn't see them as real people. And that's also not the truth, I felt, because some of the people who are studying in a certain language, that's not their original language. That's just the language they've chosen to study in. So they are Arabic speakers. It's like a group of people who have decided to study in that language. It's not an Arabic person. That's not how she's trying to make them seem. So I read that review at like 11 o'clock at night, and then I stewed over it for 2 hours because I just finished the book and I loved it so much, and I just wanted to be like, you're wrong. but I do understand where the reviewer was coming from. I just wanted to clear that up and make sure that people knew that I wasn't like just blindly reading this book without seeing any of the like downfalls to it. But for the story, purely for the characters, the plot line, I loved it, and so I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was great. I'm really loving dark academia books like this. A Deadly Education, Ninth House I really loved, which was also a book that people said was really bad, and I didn't think that. So this must be a genre or a writing style that is perfect for me, I guess. So those are the 6 books that I managed to read in January. That's 2 more books, sometimes 3 more than I normally read. Like I said, I started The Words of the Wandering and finale in 2020 and finished them within the first week of January. But I am really hoping, fingers crossed, that I can continue on with this, because if I read 6 books every month, I will have hit my reading goal of 60 books by October. And then November and December will just be bonus months, which would be really cool, because then I would go over my reading goal for the 2nd year in a row, or at least just hit it. Because last year was the first year in about 5 years that I've hit my reading goal since I graduated from high school, which is embarrassing. But I'm realistic with myself. I work 40 hours a week, I make dinner, I have groceries to shop for, and other things to do that I enjoy outside of reading. So try not to put too much pressure on myself. So those are the 6 books that I read in January. I'm hoping February is also going to be a really great month. If you like this video, please subscribe, hit the like button, comment down below, let me know how you're reading in January. That is such a hard sentence to say. How your reading in January went, what your goals for February are, and just how you're doing. I feel like I like to ask how people are doing, because it's a rough time right now. So thank you so much for watching again, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!